Hey there, cool kids. We're back at the pond today for a one-day build. We've noticed a little bit of a problem with the filtration system for our pump. It gets clogged very quickly and very easily. You're really supposed to clean that filter probably about once a week, but we want to minimize that as much as possible and keep the flow in steady operation. So we're going to build a filter box, this time on Make and Believe. So as you can see, we have a temporary measure in place, this orange mesh bag, but it's actually pretty easy to see that from very far away. So we're going to try to replace it with something a little less visually distracting from the natural environment of the pond, and something that works a little better. To be honest, the mesh bag is a bit difficult to clean, just like the filter itself. Right, and it is kind of getting sucked into the filter. So we're going to make a solid, rigid structure. I think I've got some materials in mind, so it's time to get to the design phase. Okay, so we've decided that we're going to make the exterior of the box out of this aluminum mesh. It's black, it should disappear nicely under the water, and then we're going to use an even smaller mesh that is not rigid on the inside of the box, and I think we're probably going to use scraps from window screens to do that part, because I have a lot of that left over from recently rescreening all of the windows and screen doors in our house. So I have a full sheet of this. We measured out we would like our box to be roughly 9 inches by 5 inches by 5 inches to cover the entirety of the pump and to leave a little extra room on the inside. So I've started to mark out my sheet and cut it with my metal snips here. And I'm starting to fold it into shape to make our box. We're going to make the box have an open lid that we can pull the filter of the pump out of, and a lid that will come around the outside of that, much like a file system box that just kind of clamps down on the top, that we can pop on and off there to access the pump to clean the filters when needed. I am using some zip ties. As you can see, this aluminum has holes in it, so if I'm able to get my holes to line up properly, I can zip tie the edges together just like that. And then I'll probably spray paint the whole thing black again to cover up the lines that I marked with my gold and silver pens for cutting and bending, and then to cover up the whiteness of my zip ties before we put this into the pond. So that's kind of the idea here, and I'm going to keep working on this until I've got the box ready. One thing to note is that I need to keep one end at the bottom here. It's going to end up being this corner open, and we're going to actually finish closing the box up around the pump itself, so that I can have a little cutout here for the cord for the pump to come through, and then we'll close it up around the pump, and the filter actually pops off the pump, so the pump will stay in the box, and the filter will be able to pop on and off to be able to be cleaned and put back in as needed. Right, so the box is looking pretty good. I have actually done a little trimming here to give a gradual edge for the cord to emerge through this corner, and then I've gone ahead and tacked down with some super glue a pad of rubber stripping that I've cut from scraps I had left over, just to pad that cord against being cut by the sharp metal edge here. So I'm going to go ahead and start to join this side, but not all the way, so that we can just squeeze the pump cord in, and then finally make the final seam right here and along the side of the box once it's around the pump and ready for final assembly. All right, many zip ties later, got my box ready to come together. Final seam just ready to be zip tied up around the pump. I've got my lid created, and it pops on here quite nicely. I can't do it one-handed while holding the phone, but it does fit. I've test fitted it, and it's perfect. Zip tied that together at the edges as well. So we're ready to go. The one thing I still want to do before I start putting this onto the pump is I need to measure. There's going to be a place probably on, let's see, it's going to be this side wall, right about in the middle there, that I'm going to need to cut a hole for the tube out to come through, and there's actually an outlet that sprays water through the pump and controls the flow rate. So I'm going to use that solid piece of plastic to come through there, and we'll connect it there at our seam where this hole is going to be. I'll probably hot glue it in place in the end so that it stays and there's no like back and forth wobble action on it. And then that sticks up. There's a control knob for flow rate on it, and then on the other side of the control knob is where our tube comes out that pumps the waterfall, the water up to the top of the waterfall. So I need to find where that hole is going to be, and I need to cut that hole, and then I need to finally take the window mesh and start to apply it. We're going to do it actually on the outside of this rigid structure instead of on the inside like I originally thought we might, for two reasons. One, since it's not rigid, the suction action of the pump will tend to pull that fabric in towards the pump itself, and we really don't want that. We want it to stay affixed to the rigid structure, so that'll help if it's on the outside. And then also, if it's on the inside, if debris gets into these bigger holes and then gets stuck at the mesh screening, the finer holes on the inside, it's going to be impossible to clean out. But if we put the finer holes on the outside and the bigger holes on the inside, that should allow water to come through, and everything that's going to get stuck to the mesh will get stuck on the outside of this pump box. So it should be easy for us to just pop the pump out of the water, brush it off, and put it back in again when we're done. So that's the plan. Right, my lid is all set. I went ahead and hit this and the box itself with a coat of matte black paint, just to make sure everything is nice and toned down in there and is not going to be reflecting too much light or look too awkward when we put it in the water. And next up, I will be adding my fine mesh to my larger mesh to complete the pattern. So this is going to fold around on all the edges and lock tight to give us a really good filter. And then I've got a larger piece here that will go around the box itself. I've cut the hole for the pump in the box. I've not figured out how the bigger piece is going to fit onto the box yet. It might just wrap around it and not glue to it. We'll see. Okay, after a little bit of trial and error, I was able to actually wrap it just like wrapping paper. And you know, it's not the prettiest thing I've ever done in my life, but I think it's going to be functional. This hot glue is going to provide a really watertight, secure seal on all of the seams, and the flexible mesh is now attached to the larger rigid mesh structure, and I think it's going to be just great to start. This is the lid that'll pop on and off so that we can have access to our filter on the pump itself to pop that filter off and clean it when needed. So next, it's time to get the mesh, the larger piece of mesh, I don't know if you can see that here hanging off my table, onto the box itself, and to cut a slit in that for the exterior to come out, the water nozzle to come out again through the smaller mesh, and then I think we'll be ready to do final assembly and put everything together. Okay, this is about as far as I can go with attaching the mesh to the box. Before I actually put the pump inside it and bring it up through this hole and put the cord through the prepared cord slot that I've made for it. After the pump is installed in the box, then I can go ahead and finish tidying up the mesh and securing everything together for its final fit. All right, we've got the pump mounted in the box, and you can see the flow adapter that I mentioned. Water shoots out of there. This adjusts the flow. This is where the water goes up to the the waterfall. You can see how that fits through the box. It was probably hard to tell from just my verbal description, but that's what I was going for here. We also got the cord coming through and out the back through this section that has not yet been joined, and it is time to join that section basically by just wrapping up the mesh here and hot gluing everything down to make a good tight seal. And then at the very end, we can pop our lid on the front. So that's the plan. We're almost there. Say hi to the cool kids room, Baldy. Say hi. That's from Baldy, ladies and gentlemen. He's the coolest cat. He really wants to come outside and check out our handiwork. And he's probably not going to get to because the sun is going down. But I will show you how it all came out. The hot glue gun gods were kind, and I had just enough hot glue to get to the end of this project. I was able to pop the lid on just fine. I built up the seams around the lid on the outside edges and then on the box itself on the inside edges so that there was no conflict when I fit it in the end, and it fits really well. It's nice and snug. I don't think anything's getting in there between the seam of the lid and the box, and I was able to patch up the back really well. So the key here is to not have debris get inside the tight, loose mesh bag, and I think we've accomplished that, let alone through that bag and then through the rigid mesh to the pump. But water should be able to pass through this just fine. So yeah, mission accomplished. I think it's time that we pop this pump box back into the pond, turn on the waterfall, and give it a test for, you know, about a week and see how it holds up. All right, someone's doing some pond maintenance. Very nice, very nice. Our tree is like shedding ridiculous amounts of pollen right now. It's everywhere. Here, let's
look over there.
There's some right there.
No,
that stuff.
Over there.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere! And it's in the pond, so we're scooping it out. But as you can see, or maybe as you can't see, the pump has now vanished. Well, mostly to the eye. I mean, it's certainly not a yellow mesh or orange mesh bag anymore. So far so good. Our filter box is performing as intended, and we will check back in on this in a few days to make sure everything is going smoothly.